From beating Real Madrid in the Super Cup final.
Oh, it's deflected! And then Rafinha, he doesn't care about the deflection, neither do Barcelona.
I'm going to heap praise on Hansi Flick right now. I am so impressed with the work he's done, not just the injured guys and whatever, but how quickly he got them to really change their style, adopt the style.
To being behind them in the league.
Real Madrid on top of La Liga after a match day for the first time since November the 24th.
What happens if that drop points right there from Barcelona decides the title and Real Madrid go on and win it? Embarrassing.
From scoring for fun to conceding for fun.
Barca got what they deserved out of this game in the end, which was nothing.
Yeah, it was incredible. The crowds were absolutely loving it. It felt like there were more goals there. They could have scored even more.
From a team that people feared to a team that makes every mid-attacker look world class, what the hell is happening with Barcelona?
How we work, it's totally different than they had it before.
Because they are young, because they are all willing to do whatever this manager is telling them to do, is going to help a lot. Of course, results were there, so they are all backing up the result, backing up to the manager.
As good as Hansi Flick's Barca were during the 2024-2025 season, the problems we are seeing today still existed back then.
But let's start with Barcelona, Alex. The wheels have well and truly come off, haven't they?
It does feel like more than just a blip now.
Even when Barca were winning trophies and dominating games, there were clear warning signs.
These highlights have compressed everything. Everything that changed. The mentality needs to change.
The difference back then was simple. They scored so much that most of the flaws were hidden. Now, when the goals slow down, when the team isn't finishing at the highest level, those same issues feel impossible to ignore.
Did this look like a team that was pressing the ball together, that was winning the ball and higher up the field, that was controlling the match? We highlighted previous to the game. So it became Girona controlling the transition moments. It became Girona controlling the match going forward.
One of the biggest patterns that has carried over is how often Barca start matches poorly.
4-0. Barca were lucky to be 4-0 down at halftime.
I mean, these guys go down faster than your local hooker. Even during that trophy-winning run, they had this strange habit of going behind early and then forcing themselves to chase games.
That's how good they can be. You could argue are one of the top 3 teams in European football in terms of attacking talent.
It felt like conceding first was a part of the plan, like they were doing some challenge and ultimate team or something. When everything is clicking, they can recover easily. But now those slow starts are costing them badly. You cannot concede 4 goals in the same half against a team like Atletico Madrid.
I saw the worst Barcelona performance, I think, under Hansi Flick. Certainly this season, they've not played this badly.
Now, Flick deserves to get a large portion of the blame, and I'm going to get to him later in the video. But keep in mind, there is a massive difference between criticizing a coach's tactics and flat out asking him to leave. I can't really tell how many people on social media are rage baiting to make pennies on Elon Musk's app, or they truly believe getting rid of Flick will magically solve their problems, but the German deserves massive credit for what he's built. He has more than enough credit in the bank to continue being the manager and to be backed financially, and more importantly, for the fans to get behind him. Too many Barcelona fans have short-term memory. Do you guys not remember that when he arrived in 2024, the club looked lost? Barca had just gone trophyless. The football was horrendous, and several players looked completely out of place. Ferran Torres looked way worse than he looks now, and that's saying something. Eric Garcia didn't seem like a Barca-level player, and Rafinha had one foot out the door. At the same time, Madrid had just completed a dominant season where they had won the Champions League and La Liga. Then on top of that, they had added Kylian Mbappe. Everybody thought Barca's future was done, that they were cooked, that Madrid were going to dominate for the next decade.
If Mbappe lands Madrid, Barca don't have to get ready, the world has to get ready.
Okay. But then Flick changed the mood immediately. Everybody across the board improved. Ferran looked useful again. Eric Garcia became a Swiss Army knife that Flick could use everywhere. And Rafinha went from a good winger to arguably the best player in the world in 2025. The team played with energy and belief. They overwhelmed their opponents. Only PSG looked like a better side than Barca. But the issue is that even during that dominant period, there were cracks in the system. Flick's setup allowed a lot of chances against them, and many of those weaknesses were covered by individual brilliance and relentless scoring. That balance, though, is extremely risky.
And listen, I don't think Hansi Flick is under the illusion that playing that way, they're not going to concede goals. I think that the idea is that, we've got the best players offensively, so we will outscore you.
When the finishing dries up like my balls after watching Ferran Torres play up front, the problems underneath become obvious again.
They create chances, don't score goals, somebody else scores, and now here we go.
Now, missed chances are a part of football. You can never blame Flick for the team creating a lot of chances and not putting it into the back of the net. That's on the players. All Flick can do is set up a system that gets him into the attacking third and creates lots of chances. The finishing is down to the individuals. But consistently giving up big opportunities is a structural issue.
They try, yeah, they create, yes, but they make so many mistakes.
And that falls on the system, which means it falls on Hansi Flick. We've seen it all season long. There were many performances early in the season where Barca were bailed out by Joan Garcia. Look at the performance against Rayo Vallecano. Then you had Barca being completely outplayed by PSG's C team. I mean, those guys had major injuries everywhere, and they still sliced Barca open like Bonnie Blue. It doesn't matter whether they play a good team or a bad team. Everybody goes through this Barca defense. The only difference is in the individual quality of finishing. Like, Barca struggle against big teams all season long. The only reason that they didn't struggle against the smaller teams is that those guys didn't have the same quality up front to carry out those chances and make them into goals. So it doesn't matter whether the opposition is a top team or a mid-table side. The defensive shape is always open. This high defensive line shocked opponents last year. It was new. It caught everybody off guard.
Well, I think Hansi Flick's philosophy is just total risk and reward. We're better than you, we're going to squeeze the pitch, we're going to play a high line because we're going to try and be aggressive, we're going to put you under pressure. As the boys have said and as Kieran said there, they've got talented players that can, on their day, hit anyone for a big number.
It's not as effective anymore. Teams had a full year to study it. In fact, I would argue less than a year, because in the second half of the 2024-2025 season, we saw this pressing system and high line, because they're both together, it's not one or the other, get exposed time and time again.
But if you're tactically smart and you do your homework against Barca, you survive that and you realise that if you get wide runners or midfield runners to go in behind the back line with no pressure on the ball, you get so much joy.
If there is no pressure on the ball, as we're going to see here soon, would you step out?
Not a chance.
Say it again.
Not a chance.
If you roll it now, roll it please. Pose. That guy can see. He can pick you up. Why would you? And by the way, the coordination is so bad that Jules Koundé finds himself keeping Forbes online.
That's why every goal Barca concede follow the exact same pattern. It's literally copy-paste. Play out wide, run in behind, finish from a cutback. Now, it's not just the back line either, although they looked the worst when Barca concede. The midfield gets bypassed too easily, which creates an entire chain reaction that leaves the defenders exposed.
You try to bring the high line where you try to be dominating in the games, having the ball, having the possession and creating chances. First thing that you have to have is the control of the game. And today, once again, they didn't control at all.
Now, Frankie de Jong gets a lot of the blame for his ball watching and how poor he is out of possession, but he's not the only guy. Fermin Lopez hasn't been great recently. Even Casado, who's supposed to be good defensively, has gone exposed in the middle of the park. I mean, at this rate, Joan Garcia is the only person in that back line who's played consistently. And he's also the only player who sheds a tear every time he wins man of the match, because he knows he only got it because the team can't defend to save their lives.
If we had to pick who the best player today was for Barcelona, I don't think there's any doubt that we say Joan Garcia. He gave up 2 goals, and yet he continues to be the best player on the field. That tells you everything that you need to know about the performance of Barcelona today.
Against weaker teams, Barca should be able to impose their aggressive style, the high press combined with the high line. But the real concern is that Flick has continued pushing the same blueprint without solving any of the defensive issues first. Like I said, last season the high line caught everyone off guard. Now it's predictable, and there's a lack of adaptation that makes every single mistake they make more dangerous. It's such a high risk, high reward system. That's why every defender at one point has looked terrible playing it, because any sort of little mistake is magnified. The other problem with it is that this system is demanding. Flick style requires constant intensity and perfect timing. One small error can collapse the entire structure. And when you look at that across an entire season, the physical and mental toll becomes so obvious. Even during their successful campaign, everybody was eating against this Barca side. Too much space. You guys remember when Pavlidis of all players got a hat-trick? Well, the same thing happened this season. Forbes on Club Brugge turned into prime Gareth Bale. Vinny hadn't scored in like 19 matches. Then he looked like prime Neymar in the Super Cup against Koundé. Julian Alvarez hadn't scored an open play goal in months. He gets rejuvenated playing against Barca. Against Girona was the same thing. Lamar literally had 1 goal before that Barca game. 1 goal all season. And again, the Barca team, like the Drake meme where he hands out money,
I've been moving calm, don't start no trouble with me. Trying to keep it peaceful is a struggle for me.
They love changing lives. They love making these mid-attackers look world-class for a night. Every forward suddenly looks unstoppable when they face Hansi Flick's Barca. Because the system is demanding, you're seeing the fatigue on the players. High pressing only works when every player commits fully. Lately, the pressure looks half a step slow, and when the team is stretched across the pitch, the press becomes so easy to break.
Two guys running, one guy defending, and then once again, there's no sense of urgency of what's gonna happen. Again, they're getting done so easily, Micah.
That lack of compactness makes the defensive line, that high defensive line, even more vulnerable.
You cannot play in the Champions League with that high line. I'm sorry. When you play against good teams, you're going to get exposed. And that's exactly what happened tonight. Any run, well-timed run, you go through on goal. Every single time we mentioned it, they don't want to change it. And I understand sometimes coaches can be stubborn with how they go with the game, but it can be costly in big games.
Now, some fans love to point to individuals not being there as the main reason for the decline, but the reality is more complicated. Yes, certain players make a massive difference. Pedri, for example, he changes the tempo, he gives the team control, and he's fantastic out of possession. But even when these guys were available, the same defensive problems still existed. Rafinha, Pedri, Yamal, everybody was playing when Barca lost to Inter. Individual brilliance often masked these deep structural flaws. Then you have the portion of Barca fans that love bringing up Inigo Martinez. Listen, that guy was a beast, a fantastic center back. One of his slide tackles literally clinched Barca the league. But let's not forget that Barca were conceding goals and eating goals for fun even when Inigo Martinez was there. People like to act like this guy was Maldini. No, the high line and the lack of pressing and the defensive issues were still there when Inigo Martinez was playing. There were many times where he looked mediocre, where he was the one completely exposed in this Hansi Flick system. Now, what I want to make really clear in this video is that the issue isn't just about a high line itself. The term high line has become like a really easy buzzword, like a shortcut people use to explain every problem Barca has. Oh, they conceded, oh, it was because of the high line. They just throw it out there as casual analysis. But not everything comes down to how high the defensive line is. A lot of what we're seeing is just poor defending, plain and simple. At a fundamental level, these guys are not defending the way you would expect from an elite team, from a top team. I mean, you go and look at Girona's first goal. The defensive line was not the issue there. Barca had enough players behind the ball to deal with that situation. Yet you look at the positioning in the box, that's a basic mistake. That's stuff you see at Sunday League level. It was bad marking, slow reactions, just a lack of awareness from everyone involved.
There is absolutely no argument you can put up that Barcelona deserved anything more today.
No.
Yet people will point straight at the high line instead of talking about the actual errors that led to the goal.
You can see the high line and we complain about the high line, but it's not the problem of the high line. The problem is that when Valde receives the ball, gives the ball away quite easily, and then of course everyone is out of position. Transition again, and problem for Barcelona, and that's been the whole issue the whole season. When you are not on the ball is not under pressure, Barcelona cannot keep that continue high line.
Now, I'm not saying the high line isn't an issue. There are definitely moments where Barca push the line too far forward and they leave huge spaces in behind, especially on counters. When that happens and you only have a few defenders back, it becomes extremely risky. But you have to look at the quality and organization of the back line itself. All season long, the defending has looked disconnected. Players lose their man, there's poor communication, there's so many basic positional mistakes. And that's the real problem. A risky system mixed with shaky defending is the worst combination. Barca clearly need to strengthen the defense moving forward. I talked about how Gerard Martin is fine as a rotational option, but that brother should be nowhere near the starting 11 consistently. And people said that I was just hating.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
To play the style that Hansi Flick needs, you need to have high quality center backs. Because if you don't, well, you're seeing what happens. Because even if they drop the high line tomorrow, the poor defensive quality would still cause problems. But if the club brings in stronger defenders, players like Schlotterbeck, Van de Ven, this high line can work. But again, it would be a similar issue as before, where you cannot play this system every single game, every single week for an entire season. Flick would still need to be pragmatic in certain situations. But less of these issues would happen with higher quality center backs. Because we can break down all the little details, but the main issue is the same thing. The way Barca track back with this high line is draining the players, and Flick has done nothing to change it. Even Hansi himself has admitted that the players are getting tired, but that makes his decision decisions in squad management feel that much more confusing. You have Cancelo available, but you don't play him, so Koundé ends up playing another full 90 minutes. A player, by the way, who has been struggling all season. It almost feels like the staff expect the players to just adapt to the workload instead of adjusting the system or rotating more to protect them. Like, why is Rooney Bargaji not getting more minutes, despite how good he's looked in the limited opportunities he's gotten? Because the high line definitely isn't flawless, but so much of what we have seen this season goes way beyond tactics. Too many times Barca score and then immediately switch off, conceding pretty much almost from kickoff. Like, you can't blame the defensive line there. That's just concentration and a lack of awareness. That can be solved with basic defensive discipline. Then there's been moments where opponents just walk through the team with no resistance. You can't blame the system there all the time. Somebody has to get stuck in. This is why it gets frustrating when the high line becomes the default excuse. Yes, it carries risk, but it can't be blamed for everything when the overall level of defending just hasn't been sharp enough. And you can criticize the system, but remember, this same system still won Barca 3 trophies. So the issue isn't the system by itself, it's that the team simply hasn't performed well defensively as a unit. There's a lack of urgency, slow reactions, poor marking, and until stuff like that improves, changing the line height won't just magically fix the problems. Yes, Flick should probably run a system that makes life easier for defenders, not harder, especially since Barca are a team that have high amount of possession in most games. Compared to defenders on other teams that spend the whole match chasing and defending, Barca defenders should in theory be conserving their energy for the moments that really matter. They shouldn't look this exhausted since they dominate the ball, because the balance right now is just off. The attack at times looks close to perfect, but the defense is miles behind it. Until that gap is closed, Barca will keep running into the same problems no matter how good the system is or how good the forwards look. Personally, I'm not against the high line, but Flick needs to ease off the obsession with the offside trap every single time. The other issue is that a lot of fans blame the system without really thinking about the alternative. Do you guys honestly believe this group of defenders would suddenly look better sitting in a deep block? A lot of them don't have the physical presence for that. They're not strong enough. They're not imposing enough. The one player who might benefit from that setup is Araujo, but that's it. That's why switching to a lower block I don't think would magically solve things. The defense has struggled even in situations where they've been already set and absorbing pressure. The real issue isn't just the system, it's the overall defensive quality and how the pieces fit together. The answer is probably a balance between keeping the high press, high line and offside trap with a more pragmatic approach when the game requires it. Because right now Flick deserves praise for rebuilding Barca from a very difficult moment and turning them into a dominant side again. I mean, Barca fans, don't forget you guys were in Europa League not that long ago. But success also brings new expectations. The blueprint that once surprised Europe and La Liga now needs adjustments because opponents have figured it out. Without defensive balance and renewing the intensity, the same problems that were hidden during the glory run will continue to hold this team back. Because they can win La Liga again, they can come back and win the league. But this style will not help them win the Champions League. Now, to see how important Rafinha is to the system, you have to watch this video right here.